Good morning, BookTube, YouTube. This is Johnny. Thought I'd make a video. It's been a couple of days, and yeah, I'm waking up here in Southwest Michigan. It is 9:11 in the morning. It is a Sunday morning. It is January. No, it's not January. It's February 2000. It's February the 9th, 2025. And it is 70 degrees inside my cell, the Herman hut. And I'm waking up to another day. I got up around 8 o'clock this morning. Well, I was awake off and on, but I decided to get up around 8 o'clock, and my wife left for church around 8:30. She goes to Sunday school. And when she left, I messed with our main computer, watched some stuff on YouTube, and looked at my online diary, Crooked Fingers. What I do sometimes, there's an archive on my Crooked Fingers live journal that goes back to 2001. So sometimes what I do is I go back to the year like 2022. What was I doing on February the 9th, 2022, and I'll click on, and sometimes over the years I embed it into my online diary videos and music videos, lectures, all kinds of stuff, and sometimes they are gone. They are taken off and they're gone, so I have to go there and delete that space because there's nothing there except a black square saying no longer is it online, and so then I delete it. So I'm always kind of cleaning out my online diary, Crooked Fingers, stuff that's no longer there. So I do that, and yeah, reason why I started doing live journal Crooked Fingers was that back in 2001 I was working at the Hamilton Farm Bureau in Hamilton, Michigan, which is just about 10 minutes from where we live out in the country. It's all farm out there, chickens and hogs and cows, and they raise corn and soybeans and all kinds of things. But I was working at the Hamilton Farm Bureau in the egg division, and I was laid off for a couple of months, and in 2001, and my wife and I were at a coffee place in Stuckatuck, Michigan, and in this coffee house they have old chairs, and they have books and magazines, and I picked up a magazine, and it said there was an article about LiveJournal, that you could go online and start your own blog. And so when I got home, I started doing that live journal. And then I also found out by Diaryland, which is another diary site. And so I started doing live journal back in 2001 when I had been off, I was basically off work for about 3 months, and now I don't have my timeline with me, but I started working in the Farm Bureau but in the mid-90s, I think. I don't remember. I don't have my timeline with me, but so I've been on there since March of 2000. Well, maybe I first started Diaryland and then I started Journal Space. But anyway, I've been on there going on 24 years. Now, as you all know, I've been keeping a diary since I was in high school back in 1968. But as you all know, I repeat myself like a broken record. I destroyed all my diaries, all my stuff that I had accumulated over the years when I left California in 1978 to go to Reformed Bible College here in Grand Rapids, Michigan. But I have 1978 because it wasn't, I didn't burn everything because it wasn't a full year. I basically burned from 1968 until 1977. So I have downstairs in the lower level boxes from 1978 until today. So as far as my paper diary right now, I'm on page 128 thus far for the year 2025. So yeah, I've been writing, and that's what I do. I'm a writer, a diary writer. I'm not a professional writer. I don't have any plans to publish anything, my memoirs. It's just a colossal, massive record of my inner life, my day-to-day life. So yeah, my family life, as you all know, I've been married this coming May. We've been married 46 years, and so I have all written down in those paper diaries my married life. Basically, when I met Carol back in 1977, 78, I immediately started writing when I came to Grand Rapids, Michigan. And so I started writing, and I haven't stopped. It's kind of like you get an obsession about writing. You just have to write. It's just part of what you do. And yeah, and I also read. And one thing of this, my online diary is not only a record of my reading life, my spiritual life, my day-to-day life, but also the books that I collect and read. I've always been a bookworm since I can remember. Now maybe I got more into reading as I gotten older. I mean, like in my when I was really young, I was more, I read, but I was really into my own daydreams and my own imaginary world. I was always into my head and just experiencing life. But I always was fascinated with books. And then, because you'll know, I became a Christian in 1970, and I got into reading the Bible. This is my Bible, the Bible I use the most. That's why I have this packing tape on it. As I told you, I went to get another Bible like this at a Christian bookstore, and it'd be over about $200 if I wanted a Bible like this. So I decided just to. This Bible I've had 34 years. I have all kinds of Bibles. You've seen all my Bibles. I collect Bibles. So the story is that when I became a Christian, I read the Bible, 1970, and then about 1975, in my theological and spiritual journey and progress and development, I became a Calvinist. And I got into the 17th century English Puritans, and then the whole world of books opened up for me. Because in 1970 to 1975, I was in the Jesus movement, which is basically a very emotional kind of Christianity, speaking in tongues and Christian communes and doing street evangelism in Berkeley, California, and going to Jesus festivals and Jesus music and all that. And then in 1975, I joined the Orthodox Presbyterian Church, a very conservative, evangelical, Calvinistic denomination. And then I just read the Puritans and the Reformed theology, and I've been doing that ever since. Even though my reading has expanded over the years, I've become more embracive of other Christian traditions and other theological systems. So what have I been reading? Well, first I'm going to show you the new books I got in the mail last week. I got this in the mail, The Essential Writings of Christian Mysticism, edited and with an introduction by Bernard McGinn. I showed you that Bernard McGinn did this massive series on the history of Christian mysticism, the presence of God, and there's 7 volumes in that. Volume 6 is really broken up into 3 volumes, and I showed you those, and I've been reading those and read them over the many years. I just showed you I just got 2 more volumes, volumes 5 and 6. Volume 6, volume 6, but in volume 6 is volume 1. But he kind of, when I was watching an interview on YouTube with him, he mentioned doing this book. And I've looked at it over the years, and I just decided just to buy it. It's like Essential Writings of Mysticism, edited with an introduction by Bernard McGinn. It's just, if you don't want to buy a huge, massive series, this is a good introduction to Christian mysticism. I mentioned that I got this book of Blue Stockings, Essays on Closing of the American Mind, edited by Robert L. Stone. I got this at my Blue Stockings used book haul, and I told you I was going to get the book. I had dehauled it, Alan Bloom's books. I got this in the mail last week, The Closing of the American Mind, how higher education has failed democracy and impoverished the souls of today's students. This is the 25th anniversary edition by Alan Bloom. So I got that in the mail this week. So when I'm reading these essays, I also have the book. I have been reading the book. I think I've read 55 pages out of this, and read a couple of essays out of this. Another book I showed you, Inventing the Eastern Europe, The Map of Civilization and the Mind of the Enlightenment by Wolff. I've been reading this. I've read about 27 pages of this. Really enjoying it. And then I finished last night reading Graham Greene's The Burnout Case. Yeah, I kind of, it reminds me of a Hollywood movie. That's what it reminds me of. So, but it was an okay read. It's a kind of, it's not, I could have read this in one day. Maybe it took me a week to read it. I collect Graham Greene, but I haven't really read him, and so I decided, well, if you're going to collect him, you might as well read something. So I read that this week. Another book I got in the mail last week was this novel by Alfred Doblin, Mountains, Oceans, and Giants, a novel of the 27th century. This was first published in 1924. It's kind of like a science fiction kind of novel. I came across this, was mentioned in a booktuber that I watch, and he did a review of this novel, and I have another novel by him downstairs that he's famous for. But these, see, it's this novel below that he's famous for. Berlin Alexanderplatz, the author of Berlin. He's very famous for that novel mentioned below. I have 2 copies of it in my library downstairs. But they're translating all of his writings, and he's a very interesting writer. So I got this in the mail, start reading it. I've read 47 pages of this. Also, I've been reading Styles, the Man, Reflections on Proust, Fitzgerald, Wharton, Vidal, and others by Louis Auchincloss. I got this at Gateway Mission, and as you know, I collect Auchincloss, and so I've been reading this as for my nonfiction. I got Friday or Saturday, I came across this book by a booktuber named Leaf by Leaf, Chris, and he did a 2-hour deep dive analysis, literary analysis of this novel. And as you know, I like Maximus novels. I like novels that are really massive, and I've read them over the years, and this is the one I got in the mail. Invictum by Michael Brodsky, and took him 20 years to write this Maximus postmodernist kind of monster, and I was really intrigued by it. And when I listened to Leaf by Leaf, he's a booktuber. He has very interesting literary taste. More, as you know, I tend to gravitate towards Christian literature, nonfiction, biography, memoirs, letters, literary criticism, books on art, history. I like certain writers like Saul Bellows and John Updike and Hunter S. Thompson, Jack Kerouac, poetry by Allen Ginsberg, and The Beats, and the Bloomsbury, Virginia Woolf, and Joyce Carol Oates, and Gore Vidal, and Norman Mailer. Just goes on and on. So I like certain writers. So I'm not really much into experimental literature, even though I do once in a while. I'll read something like that, and this is what this is, Invictum by Michael Brodsky. This is published by Tough Poets Press. I looked at Tough Poets Press, and I'd say majority of the writers that they publish I have not heard of. I've never heard of this writer until Leaf by Leaf mentioned this book and did an analysis of it. And so I like something that is challenging. I don't read books that are in the top 10. I don't read a book just because it has popular acclaim. I like obscure writers, things that you normally would not come across. And so I've been reading this since I got it in the mail. It's, like I said, it's over 1,190 pages. If you want to know about it, go to Leaf by Leaf, Chris, and look at his Were Listened or his discussion of Invictum by Michael Brodsky. I went down to the Book Nook yesterday, just out of curiosity. Was it Friday? To see if anything had come in. And I saw one book on medieval civilization from 400 to 1500 by Jacques Goff. This is a Barnes & Noble book, but Jacques de Goff is a very he's a very well-known medieval scholar, and I already have his book, The Birth of Purgatory, by him. I have another book of his downstairs I forgot to bring up, but he wrote The Birth of Purgatory, and this is his book on medieval civilization, 400 to 1500. And so I was reading it. I'm on page 133. It's going with the medieval civilization goes along with this book. I showed you this, following Columban, a pilgrim's 4,000-mile quest for monks' meaning and the meaning of monks by Johannes M. Schwarz. Still, I read this. I've read 201 pages of this. I told you he has a YouTube site. Well, he does it just sporadically. He's off it now. He has a hermitage in the Italian Alps that he films, and he has videos talking about, he's a Catholic monk, so he talks about Catholic spirituality. So I've been reading that. I've been reading in the mornings for Shaman and Sage, The Roots of Spiritual but Not Religious in Antiquity. This is volume 1 of a 3-volume series that Michael Horton's going to do on the divine self. Michael Horton is a very well-known conservative, evangelical, reformed theologian. He teaches, he's J. Gresham Machen Professor of Systematic Theology and Apologetics at Westminster Seminary in California. Start reading this this week. Really highly recommend it if you're into this kind of subject matter. This is what I'm going to be reading, what I've been reading in the mornings. I also been reading at nights. I finished The Burnout Case, and then I've been reading The Incarnations by Susan Barker. She has a new one out. I just was looking at Amazon, and she has a new one out, a new novel. But I came across this in looking at book reviews, and I've been reading it. I read 147 pages. I'm really enjoying this. It's kind of a mind twist. It's kind of like, somewhat like she goes into Chinese folklore, Chinese history. She goes into modern history of Beijing, China, how this certain character, his reincarnations throughout Chinese history. It's kind of interesting. I like going into different worlds. Like, you go into Greene, the burnout district takes place in a leper colony in Africa. This novel takes place throughout Chinese history. You read a book like this, you go into the history of medieval civilization, and then you read books just take you different places, and that's how you kind of escape this world or escape what's going on in American politics. How you just want to get your mind off what is going on around you, that it just seems like a circus, a Roman circus at the time of one of the emperors of Rome. But so yeah, I really find this very intellectually satisfying, inventing Eastern Europe, essential writings of Christian mysticism. It opens up with his on origin, his commentary on the Song of Songs, essays on the closing of the American mind, edited by Robert Stone, closing of the American mind by Alan Bloom, how higher education has failed democracy and impoverished the souls of today's students. And so I'm reading Invictum by Michael Brodsky. And my wife and I are still going through the New Testament. We're going through the Gospel of Luke. And so there's always books to read, things to write down in my paper diary, things to write in my online diary, Crooked Fingers. We're in a new week. It's in my... So yeah, not much else going on here. Outside it's been snowing. It's 20 degrees. I'm on page 128 in my paper diary. Just trying to keep my eyes on the prize. Not much else. This week looks kind of empty. Nothing really going on. I still have a pile of thrift store used books that I need to show in a video. And I'll do that sometime this week. So thank you for your comments. Thank you for subscribing. Thank you for just watching my videos. I've been doing this going on, I don't know, 8 years. And like when I go back and look at my online diary, Crooked Fingers, I post these videos in my online diary, Crooked Fingers, give a visual dimension to my online diary. So it's kind of interesting to see the progression over the years of what I have been reading or what I've been talking about. I really haven't really changed much, except I'm just getting older. That's one thing I was thinking about this morning. I was looking over my life, and it amazes you what your life has been made up of when you reach my age in your 70s. And you never know what your life's going to turn out to be. It's always mystifying. So I can ramble. It's just going on 27 minutes. This is a Sunday. This is February the 9th, 2025. I'll sign off. Have a good new reading week, and may the Lord bless. Until next time, bye.